Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm so sorry that we didn't get a chance to meet together this morning. There was some kind of a glitch with Zoom, and so I promised somebody, I don't know who, I promised that I would make a recording of what I was going to share with you this morning, and so here's the recording. The good news is that it's going to be a little shorter than what I planned this morning, and I appreciate that you've clicked on and that you're watching, and hopefully will enjoy what I'd like to share with you today. The topic is called The Mystery of How to Spell Achashverosh in Hebrew, the king of Persia. We're going to read all about him Saturday night and Sunday morning for Purim. How do you spell his name? So it's very interesting. I found this very interesting. He was the king of Persia. Achashverosh was in charge of 127 provinces. He was the Melech. He was the king of Persia. Very strong, very powerful, very influential. Some liked him. Some thought he was a fool. Some thought he was unstable. Some thought he was a moron. How do you like that? They felt he was unpredictable. One day he does this, another day he does that. And at the same time, there are some who thought very positively of him. Now, in the Megillah, his name is spelled various ways, which is unusual because Moshe. How many ways can you spell Moshe? Miriam. How many ways can you spell it? Anyway, Achashverosh has several letters, but it's spelled differently at different times of the Megillah. For example, 24 times Achashverosh is spelled with two vavs. Two vavs. I will show you an example, and I don't know if it's going to come across exactly the way it's supposed to be read. Here it is, Achashverosh, two vavs. Here's a vav, and there's a vav. So 24 different times in the Megillah, Achashverosh is spelled with two vavs, as you see. 4 times, Achashverosh is spelled with only one vav. Achashve, we don't have the second vav, it's just one. Interesting. What's the most interesting is that there is one time at the very, very end of the Megillah, chapter 10, verse 1, Achashverosh is spelled with no vavs, so it looks like Achashrash. See over here, there's a no vav. I made it tiny because it's missing. It's missing in the Tanakh. It's missing in the text of the Megillah. Two vavs are both missing. So the very last Achashverosh of the entire Megillah has no vavs at all. Well, I could end it here and say, wasn't that interesting? Maybe it wasn't that interesting. Well, let's see if it becomes more interesting. So in the Tanakh, in the Jewish Bible, when letters are absent from a name, it catches our attention. And it's often meant to convey something about the behavior of the person if at some points he's missing letters in the way we spell his name. So when the name is spelled fully, like Achashverosh with the two vavs, this top one, when it's spelled fully, it means the person is seen positively at that time where his name is mentioned. When the name is missing letters, it means to say something negative or uncomplimentary about the person. So, for example, we have this word that we saw a few Torah portions ago. It is the word for heads of tribes, Nesiim. I should have put the dot under there. Nesiim. The full way to spell the Hebrew word for heads of tribes, Nesiim, like Nasi, president, is with two yuds. You see these little guys? Nesiim, two yuds. However, there's one time when their Nesiim are mentioned, and it doesn't spell it with two yuds, it spells it with no yuds. So that catches our attention, and the commentaries want to know, why are there no yuds all of a sudden in a word that always has two yuds? What happened? So here's what the commentaries say. They say that the Nesiim, when the sanctuary, the Mishkan that we've been talking about the last several weeks, when it was being built, the heads of the tribes are described as being the last ones who donated things for the building of this sanctuary. They were the very last ones. So why are the Yuds missing in their name? What's not right about these heads of tribes? They were the last ones to contribute. So one could, well, how come they weren't the first ones? If you're a leader, you don't lead from the back, you lead from the front. They should have been the first ones to contribute. What would these leaders say? We were the last ones to contribute because whatever would be missing, we would make up for the missing things. That's why we contributed last. We were going to make up for what's not been given yet. That's a very nice thought, and it makes sense. But you don't lead from behind, you lead from the front. They should have given some things right away to give an example to everybody about how to give and that you have to give. And then at the end also make up what's missing. But they missed that part of it. To be leaders, you have to show people and lead people in the right way. And they failed to do that. And that's why the two Yuds are missing in that word Nisi'im. So, again, we look at the last time Achashverosh is mentioned in the Megillah, and we see that both vavs are missing. Both vavs are missing, and that makes us curious, and we want to know why. Are they missing all of a sudden? 24 times the Achashverosh is spelled with both vavs. 4 times Achashverosh is spelled with only one vav, and 1 time, the last time he's mentioned, no vavs. What's going on? So, there is a main reason why these two vavs are missing at the very last time Achashverosh is mentioned, and here it is. The letter vav can mean either a hook, like we talked about a couple of Dvar Torahs ago, the hooks that Moses was off, he forgot to calculate the price and the cost of the hooks. But the letter vav is also used as a connector. It's a connecting letter, the letter vav. For example, chametz u vav matzah, chametz and matzah. All other nights of the year, we can eat chametz and matzah. U, vav, connector, it connects. Yom valayla, day and night. The vav, yom va laila, day and night, it connects. Another, Torah u mitzvot, Torah and commandments. U is the letter vav. It's a connector. Abba ve'ima, mom and dad, father and mother. U, Abba ve'ima, ve connects. Saba ve'savta, grandma and grandpa. The vav is a connector. It connects two ideas together. So, the vav, which is missing, both vavs missing in the last time Achashverosh is mentioned in the Megillah. Why? Well, he's missing the two vavs, and these vavs are connectors. So the question is, what was he missing? That at the very end, both vavs are missing from his name. And what the commentaries say is that he is missing the ability to put together and understand events that are happening right under his nose. Everything that's going on in the Megillah. Things are going on, but he can't put these events together. And he failed to use his power of connecting events to come up with a bigger picture. So, for example, look what happened during the Purim story. How many things happened that were connected, interconnected, like a vav? Look how many things were connected. And in a moment, we'll see why making the connections is very important. I'm not going to go through the whole story. It'll sound like it, but I'm not. I'll just mention a few details of the story, which look like they could have just happened. Coincidence. These things happen. But Achashverosh failed to make the connection between all of these things that are described. So, for example, in the beginning, there's a banquet. Vashti, the queen, refuses to appear, and he gets rid of her for not following his orders. Okay, it's happened before. Angry king, in a disobedient queen, off with her head. And off she goes. A little bit later, Haman, the evil boo, 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 grogger, grogger. A little bit later, Haman goes to Achashverosh. He says, you think that your wife Vashti was the only one that doesn't listen to you? There's an entire people amongst your 127 provinces. There's an entire people that don't listen to you. What does that mean? They don't follow your edicts. They don't speak your language. They don't eat your food. They don't pray the same way you do. You don't want to keep these people. There are millions of Vashtis in your kingdom who also don't listen. Now, is that true? It's not true. But Haman used the example of Vashti to tell Achashverosh, you might as well get rid of these people too, just like you got rid of your wife Vashti. Okay, it happens. There are today all kinds of governments, all kinds of world leaders who are convinced and convince others that the Jews are bad people. They're a separate people. They're a despised people, just like Haman did with Achashverosh. It happens. That was nothing new. Now there's a beauty pageant, and Esther wins the beauty pageant. She's the new queen, and she's a Jew. It happens. Jewish people become very heavily involved in politics. Not unusual for a Jew to be chosen as a leader in a country. But here, there's something deeper about her being Jewish and chosen as the queen. So, next thing. There are two people in the king's court who plot against the king's life. Mordecai, he hears about it. The king is told that his life is in danger because two people are plotting against him. And this is written in the king's diary. Is that unusual? It's not unusual. Things happen. King keeps a diary. He wants to remember what happened in his kingdom. And it's not unusual. Haman gets angry that Mordecai refuses to bow down to him. And he gets permission from the king to destroy Mordecai's people. Not knowing anything about Esther, she's also Mordecai's people, but nobody knows yet. And he gets permission to destroy Mordecai's people, the guy that refuses to bow down to me. Let's destroy him on a certain date, a certain month. And okay, we've had people threaten our lives before. Nothing unusual. Esther tells the people to fast and to pray so they don't die by the hands of Haman. That's not unusual. Jewish people always do that. The Kotel today, there was a prayer service at 5:30. People were saying Shema the world over. This is what we do. This is what Jewish people do in times of trouble. We pray. We ask God to please save us. So that's not unusual, what Esther asked of the people. Esther keeps her identity as a Jew hidden. She invites Haman and the king to a banquet, but doesn't squeal about Haman. She knows what Haman wants to do, doesn't say a word. Haman again sees that Mordecai doesn't bow down. He hates the Jews even more. That's not unusual. A lot of people hate the Jews even more than the day before. Not unusual at all. So this is the buildup, because now in the Megillah comes the twist. Here comes the twist. The big episode. The king can't sleep. Is that unusual? If I was the king, the prime minister, the president of a country, I predict there would be many nights I can't sleep. Many. Worried. What's going to be? What's going to happen? So they bring him his diary. When somebody's going to read out of a diary, the king is going to kind of doze off. How exciting can the diary be? They read the king the diary, and they read about this guy Mordecai who saved his life by pointing out the two people plotting to kill him. The king says, did we ever do anything to this Mordecai to show our appreciation? No, just we wrote it in the book, never did anything about it. All of a sudden, Haman comes into the king's court. He's let in to see the king. And the king says, let me ask you something, Haman. If you wanted to show favor and appreciation to somebody who did you a big favor, what would you do? Haman says, well, here's what I would do. I would take the king's best chariot, the best driver of the chariot, the best horses on a chariot. I would put the favored person in this chariot that the king really loves and appreciates and admires and adores, and I would have him ride through the city with all kinds of confetti and people cheering him, and somebody at the head of the chariot announcing, this is how we do it when the king loves and appreciates somebody. Now, Haman thinks he's talking about him, but he ain't. He's talking about Mordecai. And my friends, this is exactly what happens. Mordecai ends up in this chariot, and Haman, thinking he should be in the chariot, the favored loved one of the king, he is leading this chariot, and he is not getting the respect he felt he really deserves. So the rest of the Megillah has its twists and turns as well. Esther invites the king and Haman to a second banquet. She reveals who Haman is and what his plan is against the Jews. This Haman, this wicked, evil man, wants to kill my people, which means he's going to kill me too because I'm part of the people. I'm a Jewess. Oh, wow. Who knew? Who knew? A great reveal. Wow. Nobody knew. Well, the king is not happy about this, and he has Haman hanged along with his 10 sons. The rest of the Megillah talks about the rituals we do on Purim, the fact that we read the Megillah twice, the fact that we have a Seudah, we have a festive meal, we give money to the poor, and we give gift packages to each other to create a sense of community and joy in being with each other, appreciation of each other, that we love each other. And there's a great turnaround. The Jews who were meant to be killed, murdered, slaughtered, God forbid, end up being the beloved of the kingdoms. People now have respect and love and admiration for the Jewish people. That's the story in a nutshell. Why did I go through all that? To show that everything that happened, all these little details, they could easily be seen as little coincidences. These things always happen. Palace intrigue, the king, this one, that one, everybody's at each other's throats. These things happen. There's just nothing unusual about any detail of this entire story. This is what happens in politics. Now we want to answer the question in these last 2 minutes. So why are the 2 vavs missing in the last Achashverosh mentioned in the Megillah? Why these 2 vavs? And here's what our commentators say. He didn't make the connections between all of these episodes. He couldn't see how this series of events were bigger than coincidences. He couldn't see how they could have happened. He couldn't see a bigger power making these coincidences happen at just the right place at just the right time. And so he was missing the vavs. He was missing the letter vav that connects. He was missing the ability to connect what happened and understand there is a bigger picture here. There is a bigger mover of everything that happened. What we call God, what we call Hashem. He couldn't understand that everything is connected and it's all being orchestrated by a power bigger than him. And that's why he's missing the vavs. He's missing the connections between everything that happened in the Megillah. So there's a lot more to say. I can't say it now because I wanted to do it in 20 minutes or so. I just want to mention the last thing. This is the icing on the cake. When the king can't sleep, which begins to turn everything around. Do you know what chapter that is in the Megillah? What chapter number? It's chapter number 6, which in Hebrew is the chapter Vav, the connector that he couldn't make. Dear friends, I wish each and every one of you a happy Purim. Enjoy, feast, have a great time, get a sense of appreciation for all the beautiful things that Hashem does for us. Celebrate well. Don't get too full. Don't have too much to drink. Don't have too much to eat. And God willing, we'll all have a beautiful and safe and a joyous Purim. Chag Sameach.